It's a dark and spooky night here at Outpost Unknown, everyone. The full moon's bright. Tonight on Exhuming the X-Files, we're going to beast out and talk werewolves in Montana with the episode Shapes, number 19 of Season 1. I'm Matthew. He is Jeremy.
Hey.
And we're here every Friday night, folks. So if you love the X-Files, hit that like and subscribe and join us. All right, man, werewolves. This is the first werewolf episode I think we get in the X-Files. And I got to say, as I watched this, I had zero recollection of ever seeing this, which is weird because I feel like I have seen all of the X-Files episodes, but for whatever reason, I lost all memory of this. And I watched this; it was kind of fresh and new to me, which was interesting. How do you feel about werewolves? Is this a Monster of the Week episode? We're sort of getting back to that. How do you feel about these Monster of the Week episodes so far this season?
I mean, it changes the main narrative of the government bad, UFOs and aliens, Mulder's sister, the truth is out there. We just get to break that stuff up with these just one-off little episodes with that don't really affect this or the overarching story of the season or stuff next season, stuff like that. And I like them for what they are.
Yeah. I was always a big fan of the Monster of the Week episodes. We're going to get to a lot of good ones in the later seasons. This one, we'll get to my opinions as we go through this. But opening scene, describe that. What's happening in this opening scene?
Animals are going crazy on a ranch, so dad and son have to grab the long guns and run out to the barn to find out what's going on. They start trying to calm the animals down, and then you get kind of this shadow of something stalking the humans now that they're out there in the barn. Son gets attacked by a monster you get to see for less than half of a second because it looked so bad. They needed to cut it. And when they cut back to the kid getting mauled, like they shake that camera so hard you have no fucking clue what's going on.
This was what I was watching because, like I said, I had no memory of this episode at all as I was watching it. Even the previous episodes we've watched where I haven't really remembered them well, I still remember bits and pieces from them. This, I had no clue. I was like, what in the hell is this? But I knew from this opening scene, I'm like, I'm not going to like this because of the way it was filmed. Now, anybody who's a fan of werewolf horror movies knows that where anything werewolf lives and dies on, you got to show the werewolf. The werewolf itself is the most important aspect of any sort of werewolf film. And from this opening scene, I was like, we're going to get barely anything from this. This is going to be nothing this whole episode, and that already
And
put me
man,
in.
you were right.
Yes,
Man, you were right.
yeah.
So, Dad steps in and blasts this werewolf with his shotgun. Kills him, though it's a belly shot. The wound itself, you could tell that they spent all of their money trying to make the prosthesis for the werewolf that didn't work out because they just painted a splotch on his chest while he was butt ass naked.
Yeah, it looked pretty weak.
And then it was just revealed that it wasn't a monster, that it was just this naked kid running around attacking people, and then we get the title intro.
Yeah. Again, the way that the werewolf was shot, the way it looked in the brief amount you could see it, I'm like, nah, no, we're gonna get a bad episode here. This is not gonna be good. But I kept an open mind.
Yeah, and how did that work out?
It didn't work out well. I will say that we do find out in this episode that this is based on the very first X File that was opened by J. Edgar Hoover, like 1946. Mulder. This is another episode where Mulder, again, way too gullible. Like there's a sequence when the guy, the Native American, is talking to about what was it, and the guy's like, it was like a hairy beast, and it had big red eyes, and Mulder's like, werewolf. Like it's immediately a werewolf, and Scully's like, what? It's a little too much. 2 episodes in a row now where Mulder just immediately believes anything anyone tells him.
I have a theory about this because throughout the episode you find different like they find flesh, human what's supposed to be flesh on the ground as though it had been shed like snakeskin.
Yeah.
Because this is a Native American thing, I'm pretty sure they started this episode with skinwalkers. But because skinwalkers
Mm,
wasn't really a widespread thing, it's like none of these fucking assholes watching the show on Fox know what a skinwalker is.
yeah.
It kind of looks like a werewolf. So I think they
Yeah.
just did that.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I hadn't actually thought about that. The Native American component of this is probably the main aspect of this whole thing. I think they call it a Manitou is what they call it, and they say it's like it doesn't actually attack under full moons. But it attacks at night when its bloodlust is high. So they're trying to show you it's a werewolf or make the audience be like okay, I identify werewolf, but they're also trying to go out of the way to make it at least a little unique, so it's not necessarily your traditional werewolf. Like I got to go grab some silver bullets and shoot it and stuff like that. But they do mention it's the very first X File, and Mulder pulls out this thing is like J. Edgar Hoover himself opened this in 1946, and I'm just kind of like, that's a little too much.
Yeah.
They're jumping a little too far on
Well,
this one.
as a kid, I probably thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever. But yeah, it was a little
Yeah,
bit hokey this time around. They roll out to the reservation. I'm still not sure. Other than they said that they kind of volunteered to go out there. There wasn't really anything clear as to why they were out there, other than there was a murder that happened or a wild animal had mauled somebody, and that's why they showed up.
and I
No,
actually
wait.
like
At the
this
time, it
because
was just this. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say I kind of like they will address in an upcoming episode the problems of Mulder and Scully's actual investigative process, where they are completely going outside of the bounds of what your typical FBI agent is supposed to actually handle investigations, where they basically just do carte blanche whatever they want, whenever they want, and I feel like some of these episodes leading up to that, when we get there, sort of makes that episode later feel more powerful and pertinent to what's going on because yeah, like you said, a lot of this, and it's not just this episode, it's also when you're just watching these episodes in the back of your head, you're just kind of thinking like these people have supervisors. I mean, I'm a Fed. I can't just do whatever I want whenever I want and just authorize. Lab. I'm going to authorize $10,000 worth of stuff here, and I'm going to do this autopsy over here and not get any sort of approval for it. And I like that because I watched all four of these together. So I liked sort of watching this one and having that in the back of my head, like how do these people get away with all this, and then that being addressed later on down the road.
So, like, well, we'll get to that in a
Yeah.
future episode. They roll into this just terrible reservation, or it's just campers parked along a mud road, and of course, they walk into like the only building it seems to be in the whole town is a bar that they walk into in order to find the sheriff there, and like half of the population of this reservation is in the bar at that time. They're looking for a fellow named Sheriff Tuscany, and they're greeted as though they are a representative of the government, and none of these people on the reservation want to help them at all.
Yeah. A lot of
So,
tension between the reservation law enforcement and the government. I think the sheriff, is even like, "Hey, when I asked for you guys to come help, you refuse, and now I don't want your help, and now you're getting into my business," sort of thing. So, which is an actual accurate thing in the real world. I can sort of attest to that. It's one of those things where it's like when things operate differently, at least the mindset is different on reservations than it is outside of reservations. Not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's kind of the reality of it. And so I do think it was kind of interesting that they had the reservation law enforcement kind of push back on Mulder and Scully and essentially be like, "No, I'm not going to let you do autopsies on these people.
right.
No, you can't do anything about it. You have no jurisdiction here. By the
Well,
way, get the fuck out."
he had a great point though. It's like you guys make me do all of these things for the purposes of investigation, and then you will leave. I'm still going to be
Yes.
here having to do this job with these people for as long as they'll have me. Like, he understands that he has to, or that, well, he understands what was happening or had his theories about it. He felt that the issue had come to a resolution and it wasn't going to better him or his community by participating or helping the FBI at all.
Yeah.
Question that I do have about Sheriff Tuscany. The, uh, was he in that same uniform in a show called Twin Peaks?
Yes. Yes, he
Is it
was. There's a
like
bunch of Twin Peaks actors throughout these episodes that were in. The guy, the cop that is Mulder's friend in Darkness Falls. He's Mulder. He's David Duchovny's friend in real life, but the cop that's with him in that whole episode was also in Twin Peaks with David Duchovny, I
wild?
believe. Yeah, a lot of
Okay,
Twin
because
Peaks.
I saw him there and I'm like, no, he's basically wearing the exact same uniform. He just left Twin
Yeah.
Peaks and now working on a reservation. All right,
And
that's that.
yeah, does this take place in the same universe as Twin Peaks? There's the question. Can we cross these universes over?
I think we can find out an answer for that, and we should look into it because I remember that there was a crossover episode where Mulder and Scully was in like The Wire or some other buddy cop show,
Oh, really? I did not know
and
that.
and then I remember reading about it on the internet because then they started tracing both things that had happened in crossover episodes of X Files and what had happened in crossover episodes of this cop show that they showed up in order to like have as much canon about a world as was possible, and it crossed over with a lot of shows. So the
Interesting.
answer is maybe.
We will look into that for sure.
They he won't let him autopsy, but he lets him look at the body. They open for some reason. Mulder opens the corpse's mouth, and it is the wettest, juiciest mouth short of Toons that I've ever seen in the show. Like, this is a dead body wearing fangs, but he's just got spit in a reservoir at the front of his mouth.
Well, I think it's supposed to be the werewolf aspect, right? So a lot of saliva with werewolves. Maybe that's their kind of like hint there. Hint, hint. It's not just these fangs. He's very doggish with the saliva.
Yeah, but they use that as evidence that maybe that guy was what was biting the livestock and scratched the kid out there. And then after that, or after the, you're not going to autopsy, kick him out. I've noticed that this is two episodes in a row where body or desecration of human remains afterwards was used as a plot point to not be able to investigate. They did that in
Oh
Miracle
yeah.
Man. They did it in this episode too. So I'm hoping this doesn't become a trend that we're just going to come to dead ends about certain things just because desecrating a body is against somebody's religion in the episode.
Yeah,
And then he
I think they definitely repeat motifs. Like when we get to Darkness Falls, I was watching that. I'm like, are they just rehashing ice with this?
kind
Instead of pulling stuff out, an ancient organism out of the Arctic, ice core,
yep,
it's we cut down some trees and release the ancient thing, and the government has to come in and clean it up before it, takes over. They do a lot of that same stuff over and over in these episodes. I think they were lacking some ideas by the end of this
sure.
24 episode
Well, they
run.
had to, yeah. I mean, you got to stretch those ideas a ways. And then he tells him no, they leave. You should rewatch that particular part when the cop is telling him to leave without the body, no autopsy, because he checks out Scully's ass hard as she walks by, and then they cut on that scene. Like they hold on it for just a second, and his eyes are looking straight down.
Good on him. Good on him. Checking out Gillian
Then
Anderson's ass.
Jilly or later they talk or Scully is trying to explain away what's going on. She mentions that lycanthropy is a mental illness. I
Yeah, she does say that.
and I didn't think so. I thought lycanthropy was partially a mental illness, but it came with a whole host of other things.
I've only heard it in relation to werewolf stuff, like a lycanthrope, right? Is what another name for like a werewolf. So yeah, I don't know the exact medical terminology, if that's accurate or not. But yeah, that also made me go, huh. Okay. I mean, maybe it's just people like mentally think that they're werewolves when they're not, and that's kind of what they call it. Maybe that's where it came from.
That makes
Listeners,
sense.
any of our listeners out there, put leave a comment. What
Yeah.
was Scully correct when she used that term?
Or is there more hair in the lycanthropy actual diagnosis? Because I think for some reason that's coming to mind.
I'm gonna look this up right now because I'm curious.
All right, all right. Okay, so we get to the really awkward scene where we burn the body of the guy that got shot at the beginning of it. There's a bunch of people, like there's a bunch of caricatures of Native American life. I wish I knew more about the people that did the research for this episode, because it feels like it's just a hodgepodge of general Native American beliefs and values all kind of crammed in there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how much of what we're watching is real and how much of it is just Jacote from Star Trek Voyager, like just fake as fuck.
I don't know, but I did Google lycanthropy here, and this says from the Greek word "lykos," meaning wolf, and anthropos, meaning man. It says a mental disorder in which the patient believes that he is a wolf or some other non-human animal. And then it looks like they took lycanthrope from that and I guess made it part of the general terms media in terms of like what a werewolf is. It's a lycanthrope.
Okay, so it was a mental illness that we're now calling a sexual orientation in furries. Gotcha.
Yep.
Um, they have the what is it, the funeral? It's a funeral pyre or pyre. They're around drums, really yelling loud, and it was just kind of a cacophony of noise.
This is so weird to me. I just went and saw the re-release of the Phantom Menace, like the 25th anniversary re-release of it in the theater. And I remember watching at the very end when they are like everyone is like 2 feet away from Qui-Gon Jinn's burning corpse. And it's like nobody's batting an eye. Like that would smell so bad. And this is another thing where people are just burning right in front of them and they're like dancing around, like no reaction to the awful smell it would be for a human body to just be burned 5 feet from you. um it broke my suspension of disbelief. I'm like, come on. It's weird.
I've been near too many charcoal grills to believe. Maybe it smells good. You don't know.
It's true, that's true,
Remember
maybe
this.
I'm wrong.
I remember the first time that I visited, what is it? One of those fake bake tanning beds. Sat in it for a little while, oiled myself up, got out, and it wasn't quite like that Kramer. You smell good because you got roasted in butter thing, but it had this interesting burn smell about me that I kind of like. So
Hey, I'm not trying to kink shame anyone here. If you're into burning bodies and sniffing them, fine. I mean, I myself love sniffing new rubber tires, so we all have our thing.
man, that is a good smell too.
Right?
Um,
Everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, yeah, I love going
no,
down to the auto store, walking down that
yeah,
aisle, smelling the rubber tires. It smells great.
Theo Haas smells excellent inside.
Yes, tell that to Steve because he mocks me endlessly for it.
All right, Steve, whatever, bud. All right,
Anyway,
so
back to the episode.
the cowboy, or the cowboy's son, the guy that got attacked, he shows up on a horse at the funeral to pay his respects, and he gets chased away by the sister of the guy that's burning. They're all mad about it. She's really mad about it. And then it cuts back to the dad, the cowboy dad, who's sitting in pitch black darkness on his front porch, drinking a whiskey and smoking a cigar. Like, maybe that'd be okay, but man, light a candle or something. Just in the fucking dark. But it needed to happen because they needed to like show what was it? They showed that he was being stalked by something, and then they showed its face, but about a quarter of the face, because again,
Yeah.
that prosthetic had to look so shit that they could just show one eyeball of it.
It's so bad looking. It's just really bad. Did this happen before or after the scene where who's got the mountain lion in the cage? that happens multiple times throughout this episode where there's just a
Twice.
mountain lion,
Yeah.
and like there's this sequence when Scully turns around and she sees it, and they like hang on her reaction, her terrified reaction to this caged mountain lion like growling at her, and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, like I'm like, this is goofy. It's weird. I'm not going to bury the lead. I hated this episode. I thought it was terrible all the way through. Ugh. Sorry, continue. I'm
There
trying
was
to
a
get it
lot
off
of
my
there's
chest.
a lot of questionable, a lot of questionable stuff that happened. But yeah, yeah, I agree. They never mention that out at that ranch they have a wild cat in a very small cage, but they show it twice. So maybe they just like this makes up for the fact that we didn't actually show the monster. Here's something that's scary, right?
Yeah, it was dumb. There's also stupid lines here, like when Mulder walks into that bar for the first time, whatever, and what I don't know what the guy calls him or something, or he's like, I can smell you. And then Mulder makes that bad, even though my deodorant's made for a woman, it's strong enough for
Strong
a
enough
man
for a
line.
man.
Oh God. I'm like, okay, hold on. Who wrote this? Marilyn Osborne wrote this episode. Shame on you, Marilyn. That was a terrible line. Even back in the 90s, that scent deodorant thing was stupid.
Sure, but that was a tagline for a woman's deodorant, wasn't
I
it?
know, yeah, scent. I think that's what it was. I think that's
Yeah,
what the brand was,
yeah,
scent.
strong enough for a man, but made gentle for a woman. Okay.
I mean, the tagline worked. We still remember it, but man, it's cringe when David Duchovny says it here. You're like, oh, it did not age well.
So dad gets shredded. They have this really. I know you're a stickler for shots. I know you in your mind you see a lot of shots that you've put to film over time, but there's always an inspiration behind it. When the dad gets killed, there it's in the background, it's out of focus, he's being mauled, and they focus on this whiskey glass that's in the front of the
Yeah.
frame that's like skipping across the floor because he's getting hit so hard. But it's like, why the fuck did you choose, like, who thought to do this and why?
I think they were like, we have to make this look artistic because we have no money to show a werewolf actually just ripping somebody to shreds. And so let's at least make, as artistic as we can, which is we're just going to put shallow depth of field shadow in the background. And because no one wants to look at this glass of whiskey. Nobody. We want to see the werewolf ripping this guy apart. That's what we're here for. And by
Right.
this point, we still don't really have much werewolf action at all in this. I
Yeah.
mean, we're just seeing shadows essentially, and like you said, a quarter of a face, and it's all very disappointing. And as I was watching this, I'm like, but come on, they got to stick the landing, right? Because every werewolf production always has the transformation that makes or breaks a werewolf film. If you have a really awesome werewolf transformation and you show it cool, you can forgive a lot of the stupidity that comes along with the rest of it. But you got to stick the landing, and we'll discuss if they stick the landing or not. But at this point, I'm just kind of like, this is like a shadow monster, not a werewolf. It's like it's a shadow monster because we're not seeing the fucking werewolf. Give me the werewolf, man.
So let me or yeah, so they investigate the dad being dead. They show his body laying in the background, and for having described every one of these corpses as being, so mangled and partially eaten, you would have expected something more than just a guy laying on his back. But
They had no money for
whatever.
that.
And then Mulder walks away from the body and just walks directly to where all of these skin pieces and hair was just shed all over the place. He picks up a couple of pieces, he looks around, never mentioned again.
Yeah. Yep.
They end up finding the son like laying out there, that's another thing too. And Dana Scully walks directly to where the naked son is laying somewhere else on the property, just laying in the yard. Says we need to get him into the hospital because he's been naked outside all night and he's dying of exposure. They don't draw a line between the two. He's obviously not coated in blood or something like that. He just said he got super wasted. because
Yeah.
he was depressed about the funeral and just blacked out.
Yeah. Stupid.
So
Terrible writing.
S- S- Scully takes him home, and this is just what did I have here? This this whole episode is caricatures of an amalgamation of Native American beliefs. This representation is ham-fisted. They
Yes.
go to visit this guy to talk about this having happened in the past. And they go to this dude or Indian fella's trailer. The sheriff is there, Mulder is there. They're talking about this story from 1946, and it's just so fucking racist. Because are they sitting at a table? No. Are they sitting on the bed? No. They sit on the floor in a circle and in kind of a darker room and start telling this old Indian tale. I'm like, just break out the fucking peace pipe, you racist piece of shit. I mean, it was a good story. It was probably the only really decent part of the episode, but I'm watching these guys sit on the floor of this guy's house, and like the only reason they're doing this is so that because the people think the people watching fucking X-Files are so dumb, they won't recognize that these are Indians because they're not sitting on the floor talking to each other.
You're 100% right. It's so like, it's so bad. It's just so bad. And maybe, I guess if I'm putting myself back as a kid back then watching this, I wouldn't have picked up on anything like that,
No,
you know, but
no, that's
now,
how we represented Indians back then, and it was wrong.
yeah, it's like, I mean, 30 years later, you're kind of looking at it as like, man, some of this stuff did not age well.
No.
Some of it was just eek, 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 and that was absolutely one of them, for sure.
But he tells the story about how it passes through bloodlines and passes through bites, and then that it doesn't happen on the full moon. It happens when your bloodlust is up, or you
Yeah.
about something, and it's after dark. You become this uh, werewolf thing. And so it cuts to Scully. She's driving the cowboy son home from the doctor's office. I still don't understand why she was doing that. And for some reason, and I know you're waiting to get to this part, he gets inside, and apparently it's after dark, and he's feeling the rage.
I thought he was feeling the loinage from, like, hey, Scully's there with him by himself. Like, it's like, is this like an analogy? He's like horn dogging out or something. It was just
Maybe.
very weird. Like, just her being with this like younger, like, was this guy a teenager? He looked like a teenager to me. Maybe he was supposed to be college age, but he just seemed like Scully shouldn't just be like hanging out with this this younger guy.
Well, she was
Uh,
being helpful, and I saw that, but like he didn't have Graeber's raw sex appeal, so she wasn't
that's true.
into him like that.
That's true. Got to get
But
them pheromones out there.
yeah, well, I mean, he was a werewolf. But anyway, for some reason, he gets into his house and he starts feeling sick, starts feeling ill, starts going through the transformation. Scully runs him up to the bathroom, locks him in, or shuts him inside because he's about to throw up. And then what happens, Matt?
One of the worst werewolf transformations I've seen in quite a long time. I was very, very excited. I'm like, okay, it's coming. The werewolf transformation. I think we got maybe 3 seconds of seeing anything. I think what they show, like his hand just like quickly break open or something. You saw some fur underneath it. Um, Horrible, awful. it was.
They
It,
showed
it
his
was.
fangs, though. He had fangs in his mouth, and he was really sweaty. Like,
Yeah.
really sweaty.
Yeah, this is a running theme with X Files. We're gonna see the tombs. We're gonna talk about tombs in a couple weeks. That
Oh
episode,
god.
man, he's sweating like it's like it's not. Oh god, what do they call it? I forget what they call it. It's like an actual like weird gel thing that they put on people to make it look like sweat. But when you put so much of it on your face, it just looks like you're gooing from every pore.
Yep.
It looks like you should just like you put like a I don't know like a fucking butter knife up and just scrape the Crisco off your face or something. It looks so gross. And yeah, so he werewolfs out we finally, I mean, the transformation is essentially nothing. It's just a few shots. Like, yeah, okay, they're on a television budget, so maybe they had no money.
Right.
But even the werewolf suit, it's you barely see it at all. And then when the when the werewolf tries to attack Mulder and Scully at the end, it's this awful fucking slow motion shaky cam. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it hurt my eyes to watch because you couldn't see anything. They had to know this thing looks like the werebear from Outpost Doom. We cannot show this at all because we will be laughed off. No one will watch the show after this. So they tried to hide this thing in the worst way, and it's so fucking bad. I hate it. Hate
It
it.
was it was really bad.
It's laughable.
See well, there was another instance of Scully drawing her gun first in this episode.
Yep.
It was great.
Yep.
They took him down. He turns back into the cowboy son, and Scully immediately starts trying to say, "Oh, it must have been some other monster or dog or something because
She's
he
like,
was with me."
he was with me the whole time. He was just right there. Then he was gone.
No,
It's like,
she was outside of the bathroom asking if he was okay the whole time. He's in there screaming bloody murder. Like, I want to take you back to the hospital. He's inside going, ah! Ah!
he's like, look, this is sort of those things where what I hate. I mean, any show does this. It's not just X-Files, and I realize that sometimes you just got to suspend your disbelief here. But I hate it, hate it when shows write intelligent characters to be stupid because they have to have the plot move forward. Like having Scully outside, like we have established in multiple episodes before this, how smart Scully is, how badass she is, you know, and all this. And then her outside the door, like meekly knocking, hey, I think I need to take you to the hospital. She would fucking be knocking that door down to get
Right.
in there when she heard this, and she doesn't do that at all. It's like, oh, and then they make her act stupid once the whole werewolf thing comes out. She's like, oh, I didn't know he was there. Oh, well, I was gone. Oh, I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. Come on.
No, but they did it anyway.
Yeah.
So they kill him. End of the episode. Did we even get a stinger? Like there was
The
somebody else running around with like
the Native American guy, he tells Mulder, he's like, I'll see you in 8 years or whatever, because he tells that story about how every 8 years or something this happens. It's one of those. It's a recurring thing in the X Files. It's with tombs as well, you know, like every so many years these things come back, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again. They tried to tease that maybe we will see a sequel to this episode down the line, and Mulder's like, I sure hope not. And I want to believe, see what I did there? That David Duchovny literally was like, I certainly hope not. Let's never revisit this script. Let's never revisit this topic again because it sucked. He had to know. It was
yeah.
bad. Real bad.
But it was it ended eventually, and then we got to move on to the next episode. So not all things were bad.
The only thing I have for this one in terms of interesting facts, Shapes was written after executives at Fox had suggested that the series should feature, quote, a more conventional type of monster, unquote. And producers James Wong and Glenn Morgan began looking into Native American legends of the Manitou to form the basis of the episode's concept. So I suppose ultimate blame goes to whatever soulless suited executive at Fox who was like, damn it, we need a werewolf because reasons.
That's what the people want.
Give them a fucking budget so we can see the werewolf. You can't have a werewolf movie without seeing the werewolf. And that's what this whole episode was. I thought it was boring. That was plotting. I didn't give a shit about anything that was going on. The werewolf stuff looked terrible. And this is directed by David Nutter, and David Nutter has done some pretty cool stuff. I think he did Ice, and he did a bunch of stuff. He did, I think, the first X Files movie. But man, like it felt like he was checked out on this, except for that scene with the whiskey glass.
Yeah.
He's probably like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." There's also the other thing I wrote down for this was there's a moment when the Native American guy says like, "You should be running fox or sleepy fox." So they make a joke about Mulder's first name. And then he does this. Mulder says this cringy line: "Just as long as it's not Spooky Fox." Ha ha! Get it? Because people call him Spooky, and he doesn't like it. Spooky Fox. Oh, the writing's bad. This is bad. I'm planning like the next time we record, because we always record these in groups of 4, and I think after we have 3 episodes left after we're done recording these, for maybe that fourth one will just be our top episodes and our worst episodes and rank them. And man, this is going to be down there as one of the worst. This competes with Space for me as one of the worst. I hated it.
I enjoyed this more or less than Space. That's for damn.
Okay, all right. So you're right there with me. Was there anything in this that you really enjoyed?
Um, let me glance over my notes. Um, the, well, in a lot of these episodes, and you were just talking just now about how some producer read this or needed werewolves in there, come in and insert themselves, which has a tendency to ruin art. Every time that this episode does something, or any episode of X Files for that matter, does something to make the audience understand what's going on because they just are assumed that they're fucking morons, I don't think is the writer's room. I think it's some producer watching the show and says, we need that. And there was this
Yeah.
point during your transformation, at the very beginning of this awful transformation, he reaches over to his shoulder and rips the bandage off of his chest to remember that like 20 minutes ago he got scratched. And I didn't need to see it. They just put it on Front Street. Like it wasn't part of the transformation that he was doing it. They just needed you fucking idiots to remember that, oh yeah, that guy got scratched, so he's gonna be a werewolf now. Like, give me a fucking break and stop treating me like a moron.
Yeah, yeah. This whole episode, man, whoever Marilyn Osborne is, I don't think she ever wrote another X Files episode, and thank the gods, because if this seems like one of those things where had the majority of episodes been written like this, we never would have got season 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, of the X Files, because this was just weak ass writing, weak ass directing, and the story is so like there's not really a uniqueness to the story of it. It's the same werewolf sort of thing you've seen 1,000 times. The only thing that they're saying is like what is kind of like, oh, fresh and novel is like the Native American component to it. But then, like you said, they take like Native American legends and it's almost like they bastardize everything and they make it for white people. So it's like you're not even really sort of exploring an actual skinwalker, which is very similar to a werewolf. You're not doing something like that. You're putting like this. I don't know what were werewolves. Are they European originally? I would assume.
There's
You're,
enough depth to Native American folklore and
yeah.
mysticism that they could have focused on that. We all could have learned something.
Yes, and they didn't. They decided to make it more white, and it fails. It fails horribly.
Everyone.
So that's all I got. That shapes, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for listening to this episode of Exhuming the X-Files. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. I want to say we have been getting subscribers to Outpost Unknown from this show, and I think it's very, very cool. We've been getting some comments here and there on the episode, so please let us know your thoughts on
talk to
this.
us, people.
Yeah, talk to us. We love to hear from you, and we'll engage with you on the channel and see what you think. But what do you think of Shapes? Let us know. We'll see you next week. We're going to be talking Darkness Falls. Are we going to get a better episode than what we got here? God, I hope so. We'll see you next Friday. And cut. Okay.
I got a question.
Sure.
Something I wrote in the notes and couldn't cram it in the episode. What is it about, or in our pop culture television shows, about rural sheriffs and rural like police chiefs that they're always driving that fucking Chevy Suburban with a light bulb?
Oh, yeah. See,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you notice these things. I have not noticed these, but now you point them out. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
There's been multiple cops. It was that way in Fargo, all the way up to Stranger Things, because Hawkins Sheriff, what's his face? He drives one too.
Yeah. I guess that's just the standard imagery that
Hillbilly
people associate with
cop.
rural cop. Yeah.
Right.
So again,
1988 Suburban.
it's the only way that the audience is going to understand that this cop is rural. Right? We got to have that vehicle and no other vehicle.
He's always wearing the shield. Yeah, the Sheriff Tuscany in this last episode, you never see him out of uniform ever.
Yeah, that's true. You never do. You never do. God, fuck that episode. All right, 5, 4, 3,